The Eiffel Tower, one of the world's most iconic buildings. Erected in 1889 by Gustave Eiffel as the entrance arch to the 1889 World's Fair. At its completion, it stood 324 meters and became the tallest man-made structure in the world. Welcome to Paris, the City of Lights. To get started, here's a short story look at everyday life in the city in summer. Yes, lots of interesting people and lots of interesting things to do. With that in mind, let's meet Matt. He's a great Parisian driver, and he's going to show us around town. That's next up on the Brewshow. This is Basilica Sacré-Cœur, built from 1876 to 1919. It sits atop Montmartre, and this famous Paris hill lies in the 18th district. Heavy-duty painters lived here in the past, including Dali, Modigliani, Monet, Mondrian, Picasso, Pissarro, and Vincent van Gogh. Now let's get started with Matt.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Enchanté.
Bonsoir.
Ça va bien, merci et vous?
Merci.
Je vous en prie, prenez place.
Merci.
Bonjour monsieur.
Matt will take us on a tour of Paris inside another French icon, the Citroën Deux Chevaux. It's a little antiquated, but it's really cool.
Ok, bienvenue à Paris. On va visiter la ville avec la plus mythique des voitures françaises, la 2 chevaux. Donc pour commencer, on va se diriger vers Montmartre, le quartier des artistes. Now this place is a restaurant called Le Moulin de la Galette, but it used to be a very famous cabaret as well. Renoir made some very famous painting called Le Bal du Moulin de la Galette. This area was the district area during the time of Picasso and the famous painters, mostly because it was a cheap area. The wine especially was cheap.
It's amazing to think as you drive past all these buildings, you don't know who lived there until somebody tells you. All those great painters lived in this district.
This place where we arrive, it's called Place du Tertre. It used to be the main place of the village before it was part of Paris, and now it's called the artist place. You see all the people drawing here?
It's easy to reach Sacré-Cœur on a metro train, and you get great views from the steps of the church. Now let's drive down off the hill Montmartre and head towards the Louvre. In Paris, there are 20 different districts. As we said, Montmartre is in the 18th, and the Louvre is in the 1st.
And here is the Louvre courtyard. So the Louvre is supposedly the biggest museum of the world. But before that, it was the Palace of the King. That was so big. Here we can see the glass pyramid. And here you have the little Arc of the Carousel, which is actually the prototype of the big Arc of Triumph. It's for Austerlitz battle as well. They made it in 1806. 80% of the people who go here, they just want to see Mona Lisa. And usually they are very disappointed because it's a very small painting. And it's always packed with people in front of it.
From the 1st district to the 4th district, let's stop for a look at the exterior of Notre Dame. The Catholic Cathedral is considered one of the finest examples of French Gothic architecture and among the largest and most well-known church buildings in the world. It's home to the Archdiocese of Paris, and the Hunchback lived here for a while too. Construction began in 1163, and the cathedral was essentially complete by 1345. Notre Dame was among the first buildings in the world to use the flying buttress arched exterior supports. The building has lots of statues, also lots of gargoyles. The gargoyles are kind of scary, but also serve as rain conveyors to keep rainwater from running down masonry walls and eroding the mortar between. A trough is cut in the back of the gargoyle, and rainwater typically exits through the open mouth. Okay, back in the old Citroen with Matt.
And here, this building is a Orsay Museum, Musée d'Orsay. This is where I can find the biggest Impressionist painting collection of the world. Well, it used to be a train station at first. It's made in 1900. You can still see the name of the city it used to serve on it. Vannes, Lorient, Quimper. In 1940, the train became too long for the station, so they built another one, and this building was unused for 40 years. Okay, supposedly, only the police is allowed to take this street, but we're gonna say it's okay. So here we are on Grenelle Bridge. This is one of the best point of view of Notre Dame. From here you can see the back. That's
Notre Dame.
This is Notre Dame. Yeah, it's the biggest church of Paris. It's the late period of the Gothic style. You know, this is a very beautiful church. But this name, Gothic, is actually it's actually fun to know because it was a word which was invented to make fun of this kind of church. Because the Goths were barbarians during the Roman times. And during the Renaissance period, people didn't like anymore this kind of church. They would prefer church that look like a Greek temple, column, perfect proportion, things like this. So this word was made to make fun of this kind of church. On the right, it's St. Louis Island, and on the left, it's the left bank, the entrance to the Latin district. You have to know that the river, la Seine, cut Paris in half, in the middle, of course.
This is the Thames?
Almost. It's a French version of the Thames. It's la Seine. But more or less the same, water, bridge, same idea.
Fish?
A few, but toxic fish. Not edible. Sometimes you can see people fishing in the river, it happens.
And we say one more time, blue blah blah blah.
Yeah, blah blah blah, of course. Yeah, it's silver, blah blah blah.
Okay, good.
Awesome way to see and learn some things about Paris. Now, on to the subject of beer. Next up on the Brewshow.
Hey everybody, we're here in Paris. Welcome to the Brewshow. We're here with a very nice gentleman, a man who's trying to revive a local brand, a historical brand. His name is Guillaume Roy. That's the French. In English, it's Roy, R-O-Y. Very interesting idea to take a historical brand that was created in the 19th century, 1882, I believe, and now updating that to contemporary terms in an effort to revive the beer culture here in Paris, which is somewhat lacking nowadays. Hello Guillaume, and welcome to the show.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Guillaume Roy et je suis ici pour vous présenter la bière historique de Paris, la bière Gallia. Alors la bière Gallia est une histoire familiale qui est en lien avec l'histoire de Paris. Ça a commencé en 1890. Un Alsacien, donc Monsieur Voluter, est arrivé à Paris. Il était négociant en houblon et il a repris une brasserie qui était une petite brasserie pour en faire une brasserie indépendante et forte à Paris. Donc la brasserie a ouvert ses portes en 1890 pour commencer à produire des bières de tout type pour la région parisienne. Dans le 14e arrondissement, elle a brassé jusqu'à 150 000 hectolitres dans les années 30-40. C'est une histoire familiale qui a tenu jusque dans la fin des années 60, où malheureusement la brasserie a dû fermer ses portes puisque le marché parisien de l'immobilier était très coûteux et que la brasserie n'était plus assez profitable pour ses actionnaires. Alors la brasserie Gallia, il brassait des bières de type Pils, la Gallia dans ce genre de bouteille en 75 centilitres. La brasserie était vraiment forte pour ses bières de type Pils, des bières blondes de basse fermentation, plutôt claires et rafraîchissantes à 5,5 degrés. Et c'est pour ça que, donc, en relançant la marque Gallia, nous avons relancé en 2010, donc il y a 2 ans, la bière Gallia, la bière Pilsen Gallia, qui est donc une bière maltée, houblonnée, qui est une bière plus savoureuse que les bières qu'on a l'habitude de boire aujourd'hui en France, une bière blonde comme on les faisait autrefois. Alors le constat était simple, c'est que il y a 3 ans, il n'y avait plus de bière à Paris, plus de bière qui représentait la ville de Paris, alors que partout dans le monde, on retrouve des bières dans la plupart des grandes villes du monde. Et en fait, on est donc tombé sur cette marque oubliée qui était la marque Gallia, la brasserie Gallia. C'était la plus grosse brasserie parisienne. Elle a existé de 1890 à 1969. C'était une brasserie familiale qui a brassé jusqu'à 150 000 hectolitres de bière dans le 14e arrondissement sur une surface de 5000 m² où était située la brasserie. Malheureusement, cette brasserie a dû fermer ses portes en 1969. Elle a été rasée pour construire un immeuble puisque la valeur immobilière dans Paris était plus importante que le brassage de bière. Donc l'idée est vraiment de faire renaître tout un esprit bière à Paris et on est là pour ça en relançant la Gallia. On veut redonner vie au patrimoine brassicole parisien. La Gallia aujourd'hui c'est une bière blonde, mais nous avons aussi plein d'autres bières de spécialité que nous brasserons dans le futur dans le lieu donc de brassage en région parisienne et nous espérons que vous pourrez venir nous passer visite dans les années à venir. Bienvenue à Paris et santé!
Now that is making me thirsty. Thanks very much, Guillaume. Earlier, we drove past the famous Louvre Museum. Let's head back for a look inside, and that's next up on the Brewshow. Getting to the museum is easy. Just take the Metro line number 1 and find the 2 stops for the Louvre. Perhaps the first thing you'll see is the unmistakable pyramid. Designed by I.M. Pei, it became the Louvre's new entrance in 1989. Stainless steel tubes form a 21-meter-high frame. Once inside, get ready for the crush. Here it is, the Mona Lisa, arguably the most famous painting in the world. Leonardo da Vinci's portrait of the woman with the enigmatic smile. The Louvre is one of the world's largest museums. A central landmark in Paris, it's located on the right bank of the Seine in the 1st District. Okay, I'll try to say district in French. It's arrondissement. Yeah, that means district. And the first is actually named after the museum. Nearly 35,000 objects from prehistory to the 21st century are exhibited over an area of 652,300 square feet. The Louvre is the world's most visited museum and today receives around 10 million visitors a year. What began as a fortress and later became a royal palace was turned into a museum during the French Revolution when the National Assembly decreed that the Louvre should be used to display the nation's masterpieces. As such, it was first opened in 1793 with an exhibition of 537 paintings. Napoleon later came along and physically turned the building into a proper museum. This museum is great. I mean, really great. But it's so big, you can't really see everything in a short period of time. Better to try to choose your favorites, focus in on them, and see as much as you can as you go along. Here's the Rembrandt room. Definitely one of my favorites. And that's a self-portrait right in the center. On the way to the exit, riding the escalator up into the glass pyramid. The Louvre is a huge experience, but that's par for Paris. It's huge. After such a great day in the city, you can always look forward to the night. So bring on the night. Time for the evening meal. That endeavor opens up an unmatched massive lexicon of fine dining possibilities. Just do some research and choose from all the great restaurants in town. And after a great meal, how about some live music? Yeah, you'll find it all in Paris. Can you imagine? Such an amazing window display is commonplace in creative Paris. Let's rejoin our friend Matt for another drive around town. Next up on the Brewshow. Jazz music, one of my favorites, and the French really embrace it too. Have a look at the club listings and you can find live jazz almost every night. Now here's Matt.
This was the entrance for the emperor only, Napoleon III. The statue wasn't here, so he could enter inside the building with his car. He didn't have to walk, because in the previous opera house, he was attacked. Some people threw bombs in the crowd trying to kill him, but they failed. But he was very scared, so he asked for this new opera house with some special security measure. And this is the entrance for the public.
As Matt mentioned, this is the Paris Opera, which means we're now in the 9th District. It's a great shopping area with the department stores Printemps and Galerie Lafayette just behind the opera. How about a classical busker, with a sizable audience joining him on the steps of the opera? The opera building is called Palais Garnier and was built between 1861 and 1875. It's probably the most famous opera house in the world, a symbol of Paris like Notre Dame, the Louvre, or Sacré-Cœur. This is at least partly due to its use as the setting for Gaston Leroux's 1910 novel, The Phantom of the Opera. Now back on the road with Matt and another look at Notre Dame in the 4th District. Taking a ride or a walk in Paris is always a good idea, no matter what the weather is. On a fall day like this, just put on a good sweater and a nice jacket.
People are waving at us. Oh yeah, here on the left, you're gonna see the smallest house of Paris. This one. This is a restaurant, but it's also the smallest house of Paris. From the Middle Age, it's from the 16th century, I think. Hey, hey, how are you doing up there?
Good.
Great. Oh bien, merci, très bien. Hang on tight. This place, La Concorde place, is very famous in Paris history, mostly because it was the place of the French Revolution. That means the guillotine, the death machine, was over here. This is where they cut the head of the king and the queen. Well, 4,000 heads were here. The place itself is from the 18th century, the work of Louis XV. The two buildings as well. Here is the Champs-Elysees Avenue. Usually there are no flags like this, but tomorrow is a national day, 11th November. So if you like the Tour de France, this is the finishing line.
Place de la Concorde, the Champs-Elysees, and the Arc de Triomphe reside in the 8th District.
It's a very famous avenue, well, the most famous avenue of France, and French people like to say it's the most beautiful avenue of the world, which is a bit arrogant, and it's not really true. It's a very famous avenue, mostly because it was the most modern avenue of France. For example, this is where the first car shops were. The first cinema, well, it was a place to be during the beginning of the 20th century. And now it's mostly a touristic and shopping place. By the way, this is the most dangerous place of Paris for driving. The Arc de Triomphe is the creation of Napoleon to celebrate Austerlitz battle again. They finished it around 1830.
Okay, let's hop out of the Deux Chevaux and into a cruise ship. Next up on the Brewshow.
D'abord château féodal puis résidence royale, le Louvre sera transformé en musée en 1793. C'est actuellement le troisième plus grand musée au monde grâce à la richesse de ses collections, à savoir 35 000 œuvres d'art réparties sur 16 km de galeries.
The Grand River Seine. It cuts Paris in half. On its shores in the center of the city, you'll enter districts 8, 1, and 4 on one side, and districts 5, 6, and 7 on the other side, the left bank. Right now, it's the view of the left bank and the Musée d'Orsay. As we carry on downstream, we see the Eiffel Tower, and this is the Alexander III Bridge.
As you can see the Invalides Hotel, which houses the tomb of Napoleon I.
The next bridge is the pedestrian-only Passerelle de Billy. Heading downstream, it's the last bridge before you reach the Eiffel Tower. There it is, the Eiffel Tower. If you'd like to get to the top, make sure you reserve your spot well in advance.
Véritable chef-d'œuvre de l'ingénieur Gustave Eiffel, la tour Eiffel mesure 330 mètres de haut et pèse près de 11 000 tonnes. We owe that artwork to Gustave Eiffel. It is 1,000 feet high and weighs 11,000 tons. When it was built, Parisians didn't like the Eiffel Tower at all. They found it really ugly and they had this irrational fear it would fall down on them.
Now heading back upstream, it's the Alexander III Bridge again. The Beaux Arts style bridge with its Art Nouveau lamps, cherubs, nymphs, and winged horses at either end was built between 1896 and 1900 for Tsar Alexander III. It's considered the most ornate and extravagant bridge in the city. Just next to the pedestrian bridge Passerelle Leopold, you'll see these interesting murals of various subjects. In total, La Seine is 776 kilometers long. Within Paris proper, there are 37 bridges crossing it. Institut de France building and the Lovelock Bridge, Passerelle des Arts.
Elle est considérée comme le berceau de Paris car c'est ici que les premiers habitants, appelés les Parisistes, s'installèrent 3 siècles avant Jésus-Christ. The city island is considered as the cradle of Paris because it's here that the first inhabitants, called the Parisists, settled down 3 centuries before Christ.
In the center of Paris, there are many wonderful places to visit the River Seine.
Facing the Gothic jewel of Paris, Cathédrale Notre Dame. Its construction began in 1163 thanks to Bishop Maurice de Sully, and it was completed 2 centuries later in 1345. Et juste ici face à vous, c'est le plus petit pont de Paris, appelé tout simplement le Petit Pont. Et sans vouloir vous effrayer, depuis sa construction au Moyen-Âge, il s'est déjà effondré 13 fois. Facing the smallest bridge of Paris, called the Little Bridge. And for your consideration, since it was built in the Middle Ages, it already collapsed 13 times.
Boat tours have been an ever-present part of river life since after the Second World War. Today, the company Des Bateaux Mouchés is the oldest and most well-known operator, but they've got a lot of competition.
Et si vous avez apprécié mon commentaire, merci par avance de voter. Notre croisière est à présent terminée. J'espère que vous avez passé un agréable moment en ma compagnie. Merci de votre attention et je vous prie d'excuser mes quelques hésitations. Je ne suis pas guide professionnel mais étudiant. Et si vous avez apprécié mon commentaire, merci par avance de votre gentillesse à la sortie du bateau. Nous vous souhaitons un très agréable séjour à Paris et à très bientôt sur la Seine. Au revoir.
On busy days in summer, boats constantly move up and down the river. One of the best ways to see Paris is without a doubt a slow cruise on the River Seine. Now let's step back on the dry land and jump in with Matt again for last looks at the city. Next up on the Brewshow. Back on the Champs-Elysees, a close look at the Arc de Triomphe and its many visitors, including myself. It's a video selfie. Now let's climb up on top of the Arc de Triomphe for an amazing view. The observation deck on the roof of the Arc de Triomphe is open to the public, but buy your tickets in advance to avoid the long lines at its base.
We went around the Arc de Triomphe, and you did very well. You
Yeah,
walked
I
through.
know, of course.
So
Of course, but we are pretty lucky actually because it's Saturday. During the week, it's a nightmare. To give you an idea, on the Champs-Elysees roundabout, the Arc de Triomphe roundabout, if you have an accident, the insurance company doesn't want to know who was right or wrong. You share 50-50. There is no, because nobody knows exactly what the law is here.
So what they say?
Yeah,
We don't care who's right or wrong. You're both paying. Right?
exactly. Yeah,
Ah,
you know,
that's
c'est la
fair.
vie.
That's it. C'est la vie.
C'est la vie. This statue of George Washington is actually a gift from a woman association from America. Okay, here at Trocadero Place. It's very famous because this is maybe the best place to see the Eiffel Tower. These two buildings on the left are called Palais Chaillot. They were made just before Second War for the World Fair 1937. The idea was really to create a perspective on the Eiffel Tower. It's working very well and it's a very touristic place now. I'm going to stop here a bit. Alright, so
Merci
bye.
beaucoup. Merci.
I hope you enjoyed the tour.
Yeah, it was great.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure. Another fresh way, right?
Eiffel Tower, right?
Exactly.
River is not. It's a sin. Right?
Yeah, not another one.
Good to know. I have to learn it.
Yeah. Not the one, not the
That
same.
was a terrific tour.
Sure.
Thank you to Matt.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Brewshow.
Bye bye Paris.
Bye.
Au revoir. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Well, that's our look at Paris. Wow, what a city. With its fabulous culture, beautiful buildings, and the tasty Gallia beer. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Brewshow. Cheers. That is delicious.
revoir.